Would you like to discover powerful ways to drive change in your organization? Would you like to learn about the latest concepts in people strategy, HR effectiveness, and optimization that will help your organization achieve a competitive advantage in your industry? Then HRBP MBA Masterclass with Ron Thomas is for you. With today's uncertain business landscape, HR leaders now play a pivotal role in what some say is a paradigm shift in the industry. This comprehensive 3-day program, in person or virtual, will empower you to embrace a more strategic mindset, enhance your decision-making skills, and help your organization to the next level. To register as a group or individual, email us at info@strategyfocusgroup.com or visit our website at www.strategyfocusgroup.com.
Good morning, good evening, depending upon what part of the world you're in. Welcome to the first edition of the CEO series. And who better to kick it off than Priti Malik?
Hello, how are you?
So glad to have you. She's the co-host of the Chris Fade Show. Let me give you some background. Born and raised in New York City to Indian-born parents, growing up in a balanced mix of Bollywood films and Backstreet Boys. I've heard your stories about the Backstreet Boys. She originally wanted to be a lawyer, but one day when she was in high school, she decided to pay a visit to MTV Studios in Times Square to watch Total Request Live. Now, when they would have that Total Request Live, the streets were completely blocked because there were so many people. But while watching that show, she realized that there was definitely more vibe than being a lawyer. No offense to lawyers. So she decided to go with broadcast journalism, and she never looked back. She's been working in radio and TV since she was 17 years old. Wow. Whether it was a promotions intern at a radio station, working on stories for Diane Sawyer at ABC, or running her own morning show on the college radio station. As a matter of fact, you guys played one of the interviews that you did a while ago. Priti has always kept herself in the industry. After graduating, she came across the Arabian Radio Network here in Dubai and decided to give it a shot. 2008, she moved to Dubai to work as a news presenter at Virgin Radio. And that kind of kicked it off. I mean, to go from that to where you are today, it is so good to have you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thank you so much for having me. I know we've been working this out for quite some time, but I'm glad I'm finally here.
So it's so good to have you here. So let's talk for a minute about that dream.
Yeah.
You had a dream to be a lawyer, and that triggered something when you were at the Total Request Live, that it kind of transitioned into something totally different. Walk us through that.
So, I think when we're teenagers, when we're 16 years old, you think your whole life is ahead of you. But unfortunately, I feel like a lot of times at 16, we're given this pressure where we have to decide what we want to do with the rest of our lives. And if we don't decide, you don't know what to do. You can't go into college undeclared. What does that mean? You got to make a decision. And my family is filled with doctors. I was not into medicine at all. Medical was not my vein at all. And I was like, well, what do I do? I'm not into accounting. I'm not into any of these professions, these regular, I know they're not regular, but quote unquote, conventional kind of professions. So what do I do? And I was like, well, I love talking. I'm not shy. I am happy to have an argument with you and try to win it in every which way.
Okay, so that's the legal side.
Yeah, I'll win it, no problem. I'll get you the receipts and the facts. And I was like, okay, then law it is, right? And the funny thing is, if we rewind a little bit, when I was in junior high school, we had the opportunity. I went to public school in New York City, but we had the opportunity to apply to specialized schools that had special programs. And at the time in junior high school, I had applied to certain high schools that had law-centric programs. I didn't get into any of them. The only school that I got into was Townsend Harris High School, which was specialized and that I wasn't zoned to go to. And that was more on the arts side. It focused more
Okay.
on the arts. And then when I went to Total Request Live that day, I'm standing there and I'm watching Hillary Burton do this like live link. And I'm looking at her doing this piece to camera and I'm like, why isn't that me? Like, I should be doing that. That's what I need to do with my life. And it would, when they say a light bulb moment, this was literally a light bulb moment in my life. And I was like, that's what I need to do. So I went home. And at the time, I don't know if you remember, there was something called MTV News where they used to do the news segments.
Yeah.
So I went and researched what they did in college, all of those journalists. And I was like, well, they did broadcast journalism. And I was like, okay, well, that's what I'm going to do because that's what I need to do. I just knew that was my calling. Like I felt it.
So let's talk about COVID and the impacts of that. So they talk about the Great Resignation. People are trying to figure out their next step. And I think a lot of people are realizing that what I'm doing, I'm not interested in doing this anymore. And it's not worth it. And I'm going to try and figure out something else. And we were talking before we went live on professions that have transitioned over, CPAs that are doing something else, legal people that are doing something else, even doctors that have become tech entrepreneurs. And I think your story is something that people need to hear.
I think there's two ways to look at this, Ron. And I think there's one really important thing. I think there's a lot of pressure these days to do something different and to do something that's off the beaten path, kind of like what I'm doing, fintech, NFTs, crypto, start your own business, be an entrepreneur. There's a lot of pressure to do that these days. And I'm here to tell you that you don't have to do all that. There's nothing wrong with being an accountant, a lawyer, working in retail, doing whatever your job is. That's number one. There's nothing wrong with the job that you are in. Okay. That is, I think, the number one thing that we need to realize. Because even I face it in like, don't you want to start your own business? Like, don't you want to start something of your own? It's like, but why? I'm happy in my job. If you are happy doing what you're doing, and we need accountants, we need lawyers, we need doctors, we need all these different professions to function as a society. If you're happy doing all these things, HR, executive assistant, whatever it is, stick with it. If you have realized that you are not content with what you are doing, that's when you need to start the soul searching. Don't go looking for something that's not there. You're not going to find it. You're going to jump from job to job and regret leaving what you had. That was a good thing. If you feel, that's what I think. If you're not content with what you're doing day in and day out, then maybe you need to look at it. Maybe it doesn't need to be a career change. Maybe it's a simple organizational change. Maybe it's the wrong company, the wrong boss. But that's the way that I look at it. Those are the two things that I look at.
Yeah, well, that's very insightful when you said that, because how do I think about what I'm doing now, and do I need to make that change? So people will say, I need to find another job. Why are you finding another job? What is it about the job? So if the focus is on work and the job, you're not going to fulfill that kind of inner peace that you're looking for.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. I mean, you have to, exactly what you said. Is it your manager that you're unhappy with? Maybe you love what you do. Hey, there are plenty of people who love doing accounting or working in a corporate environment, HR, whatever it is. There are plenty of people who love that. And there's nothing wrong in that,
Yeah. So I always ask people, I said, are you excited about the first day of work? So in our case, it's Sunday. So you always hear TGIF. So
it's changed. It's not Sunday anymore.
I know it's not. But for the audience, they don't know that. So I'm using the anchor for TGIF because everybody knows what that is. But being excited about going to work on Sunday or Monday. And I found that I'm excited when we were working on the Sunday was the first day. I was waiting for Saturday and for Sunday to come to do work. And I said, I've hit a sweet spot.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. Are you content in going in and doing the job that you're handed with? And For me, it's the same thing. Like if I had pursued law, I would have excelled because I don't want to sound pompous, but whatever I put my energy into, I put 150% of my energy into. So if I would have pursued that track, I would have done it. Would I have been as content? Probably not.
Probably
You know?
not. Yeah. And all that was because of Total Request Live. Have you ever reached out to that woman to have
Yeah, I did. So funny enough, I did one of those Instagram things where people were asking me to post like old photos, and I posted that photo with her. I have a photo with her.
Oh, really?
With
Okay.
Burton. And I posted the photo, I tagged her, and I wrote the story, and she actually reposted it and said, "That is the sweetest thing I've ever heard." So I was like, that's cool. Full circle moment.
Full circle moment. Yeah, there's some that you had that much of an impact on people to move in a career direction. Do you find that people? I know you're very big on social. You have to follow her on social. What is your social handle?
So my social is my name, Priti Malik, Priti Malik. You can follow me there.
Okay, cool. So do you have these kind of discussions with people reaching out to you? How did you get where you go? How do you get to where you are today? And kind of career advice? So if I were to reach out to you and say, can I get some career advice or whatever it is, and I kind of lay it out in context, what is the message that you would possibly talk to me about? And please don't inundate her Instagram feed with all these requests. What would you?
Yeah.
What kind of conversation?
If you're talking about specifically the field that I'm in, it is such a strange place. And I'll tell you why. My path was I went to college. I got a degree in broadcasting. I learned all the tools while I was in college. And I was in radio, as you said in my introduction earlier, since I was 17 years old. If you turn to my co-host, Chris, on the show, he didn't even start radio, know what radio was, until he was probably about 23, 24.
Wow. Okay.
He was doing something when you talk about career change, he was doing something completely different that he was unhappy with, and he decided to switch to radio. So if you talk about how to get there, there are various ways to get there. But it's all about getting your foot in the door in our industry. Our industry is very large, but there are very small slots in the workplace. For example, I have been doing this show now for 12 years. Right?
Really? That long?
So if I don't move out of that seat, you're not going to get that job. That's how this industry works. Okay. If you look at New York City, Barbara Walters, Diane Sawyer, you look at the creme de la creme, Kelly Ripa, Ryan Seacrest, until these people say, I quit, I retire, those jobs will never open up. Okay. So you have to first have that frame of reference. You may think you're amazing. You're probably not. I was not when I started. Everyone thinks they can talk on a mic. It's really difficult. It's not that easy.
It is.
There's a craft that goes into what we do day in, day out.
Yeah.
And I laugh whenever I hear that. I could do that. I'm like, okay, well, let's try. And if you can't,
they get there, freeze up.
Kudos. If you can't, though, you'll understand what we do. So I think you have to understand in this business, you got to stay hungry. You got to stay dedicated. You can't have a chip on your shoulder and this ego of, well, I know what I'm doing. Yeah. I'm not going to go make that cup of coffee. I'm not going to wake up at 2:00 in the morning and do this or file paperwork. You got to pay your dues. You got to pay your dues in this industry. We all did it. There's nothing wrong in it. I learned the ropes that way by getting coffee and helping out wherever I could, filing papers, cleaning out prize closets. I did all of that. But that's how I got to where I am today,
Wow. Disregard it. That's my phone ringing there. Very inspiring as you talk through moving into those kind of roles. So your first position coming in was a news reader. What is a news reader?
Okay, so a news reader is the one who reads the news at the top of the hour. So that's what I did. That's what I did. I used to write up the bulletin, and I actually worked for 3 English language stations within our network, and Virgin Radio was one of them. Okay. So I used to read the news on the hour, every hour.
So let me tell you how I became a fan of yours. Because I worked in Knowledge Village and I was driving to work. I lived in the Virgin Mine area. and I always will listen to your show, not really into it, just kind of listening, mindlessly driving through.
Yeah.
And I heard your laugh. Your laugh is the same laugh as my daughter Lauren. And I'm like, what is that? And I said, oh, I like this because that gave me a flashback to my daughter in New York. And from that point on, I became a fan. Every morning when I got in the car, that was the station. You guys were the station that I listened to.
That's so kind of you to say. You know, my laugh is very polarizing. I get a lot of hate on my laugh. And I'm like, you think I'm making it up, but a girl's just happy and I'm laughing from my gut, like from inside. So yeah, but that's very sweet. Thank you.
Yeah. So if my daughter's listening, she tagged it last night. If she's listening, I don't whether you can stream it or whatever it is, but in other words, it's the exact same laugh. So let me talk to you because I do a lot of work in organizational development, human resources consulting, and we do a lot of team development. And one of the things I've noticed about your show, this is through my OD lens, organizational development lens, is that you guys have such a camaraderie, working, laughing at each other, and that's a good work environment to have, that you're excited to go to work because you're seeing friends.
Correct.
How did you build that? I mean, once you came into that equation, how did you guys build such a camaraderie? And I follow your posts, and you guys are out doing things on days off and all those kinds of. How did all that come about?
Well, so I was a news reader at ARN doing news, and I instantly hit it off with the Virgin Radio team. The Virgin Radio only launched in 2008, earlier in the year, and I got there in August, so it was very new. The team was very young, and I was 22 years old. And I'm trying to find friends and connect, And I instantly connected with the team at Virgin Radio because they were closest to my age. I was still a bit younger than them, but they were closest to my age. And there were a few Americans there. Chris, who is the host, and then he was not doing the breakfast show initially. He was actually doing another show. So I used to see him around the office, and I'm very extroverted. So I'll say hi to everyone. I want to get to know everyone. I want to get to know who you are. So when he started doing the breakfast show, there was another guy who was doing the gossip on their show. And then I always used to say hello to everyone in the studio, pop my head in, what's going on, hang around. And that guy went on vacation and they needed someone to kind of fill in. So Chris said to me, hey, could you just come in and do these gossip stories for me? And we pre-recorded some stuff and we hit it off. We hit it off like that on air because we already had that friendship from before. I used to talk to them on a regular basis. I wasn't shy, So yeah, that's how it kind of started. And Chris is really one of my best friends. He's like one of my brothers. He walked me down the aisle during my
wow. That's so cool.
Yeah, he was part of my party as well. So we've always had that friendship before we were on air, and then it kind of solidified. We've been through so much together. And then Rossi came on, who's from the UK. He came on a few years later, and we clicked, but in a different way. Rossi is a very strange person, and we love that about him. He's quirky, and we love that.
Yeah, I know.
So the dynamic is there. Chris and I can read each other's minds without even talking. And Rossi's left field. We don't know what's going to fly out of his mouth. And that dynamic works really well together,
Yeah, it is an amazing show. It is an amazing show.
Thank you.
And I love it from the team perspective and the relationship you folks have. 3 different personalities, but everybody is having fun every morning. And that must be a great, so we talk about looking forward to TGIS or TGIM, looking forward to go to work. That's what it's about. So at one of the points in my career, I was a CEO. The reason I moved to Dubai, I was a CEO for Great Place to Work. And one of the questions we would ask for organizations, for people is, do you have fun at work? It is a fun working environment. And these are the kind of things that build a strong relationship as to what you're talking about.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I mean, if, there are people though who don't like mixing work and friendship. I respect that. But when we spend more time with each other than we do our other halves.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if I'm spending that much time with someone in a room where I'm having to open up with my personal stories about my life, having to share these stories, if I'm not comfortable with the people in that room, that makes my job that much harder.
Yeah, yeah. Because
And
you're
I
not
think
going to.
it's hard and it's fake. And you know what? As you're a listener, I know that you can tell when we're faking it and we're not. We
Mm-hmm.
don't fake it. You know that. And you can tell because when we're mad at each other, we are really mad at each other. When we're happy with each other, we're really happy with each
Yeah,
other. And
yeah.
I'm blessed to have that dynamic.
Yeah, I think that comes through with the show. Anybody who listens to the show, they feel that because it's like working together with your best friends,
Yeah.
and no one takes offense because you said something about what someone did that was
Yeah.
stupid or whatever it
Yeah.
is. But it's all in fun.
Yeah. For
We
sure.
need
Although
marketing.
people get upset. People get upset.
Really?
Yeah, they
You
get
mean the
upset.
audience? Well, that's gonna always happen. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
for
always
sure.
comes through. So you are. I was reading something that you're Virgin Radio's gossip queen. So how did that come about? The gossip piece, because I know you do that little segment on
Yeah.
celebrities and all these kinds
Yeah.
of things. Yeah.
So entertainment news is what I've always wanted to do when I made that decision when I was 16, 17.
Really?
I've always, I wanted to be on like MTV. Like I wanted to be on MTV News. Like that was my thing. I love it. I think it's fun and it's what I love. You can ask me the history of Kim Kardashian and I can give it to you. Like I love that stuff. I never was into hard journalism, hard news,
Okay.
politics, all that stuff, because I mean, it's great and kudos to the people who do that, but it's not my cup of tea.
Mm-hmm.
So the way the gossip started, I was telling you a little bit about this earlier, was so when I was doing the news, the team at Virgin loved my news reading voice because of the way I told the news in a fun, energetic way. And then when their gossip reporter, Chris's gossip reporter, was on vacation, they were gone for a really long extended period of time. So they needed someone to fill in. And I started doing the gossip. And he said, if I give you these 3 stories, the first day he was like, hey, can you read these 3 stories out on the radio for me? And I was like, you don't need to give me a sheet. I know these 3 stories. No problem. Flew them off like this. Like I knew all the details. I knew everything.
Yeah.
They go, okay, can you come back tomorrow with your own 3 stories? I was like, yeah, of course. So I did that. And I started doing that every day. We used to pre-record that. And then they said, okay, we want you to do our news every single day. And I want you to do the gossip live every day. And I said, okay, sure. Gradual step, did it every day. Then it was like, I want you to be on the show the whole time live as like a third person, third voice, but doing the gossip. And I was like, yep, I'm there. And I just became like this third person on the show full time. I used to do the news and I used to do the show and did everything along with the show. And then when his co-host at the time decided to leave, that's when I stepped in. So.
Wow. I mean, you're talking about a strategic map, although it wasn't designed, but that really worked out, right? I mean,
Yeah, it
wow.
completely worked out. I mean, I was at a point where I was like, I think I need to leave Dubai because I don't want to do this news thing anymore. Like, that's not what I want to do with my life.
Yeah.
And I was at kind of like this crossroads. And when this opportunity came and Chris was like, well, my co-host is going and we need you. And I was like, okay, I'm staying. And I stayed, you know?
Oh, wow. Wow. So
Yeah.
your show starts at, is it 5 a.m.?
6 a.m.
What time do you get up? What is the lifestyle of
Oh, Ron,
having
this
to
is
be
the
at work
question that kills me.
having to be at work at 6 a.m., which means you got to, for a woman, it's a little different. For a man, you take a shower, you shave, put some stuff on, and you're out of the door. What's the prep like for getting ready to do a show at that time of morning?
So I wake up at 3:45
Okay.
every day. Oh, it's just, I've been doing this for so long.
Even
It's terrible.
see, I could feel the energy even when I wake up at 3:45 every day.
It's hard. I'm not going to lie. Anyone who tells you they're used to waking up at that time, they are lying to your face. It is an unhuman time. No one wakes up at 3:45. It is wrong, but we do it. And before the pandemic, well, before really social media came into play, it was great. I never used to wear any makeup. I didn't even care what I wore, like sweatpants and a sweatshirt every single day, hair flying off, like wore flip-flops to work. And then social media came into play and we were on camera a lot. So I had to start caring about makeup and hair and what I'm wearing. And then the pandemic came and no one cared what anyone was wearing because everyone was freaking out. So I was back to wearing sweatpants again. So it's just one of those things. I used to get ready at work. I used to come in, do whatever I needed to do. I get to the office, to the studio around 4:30, 4:45. And I would do my makeup and stuff at the studio, but we don't need to do that anymore. So yeah.
So my normal routine was I wake up at 4:45. When I'm in Dubai, 4:45 a.m. I wake up and I do a walk around Dubai for
Nice.
normally 2 hours.
Yeah.
And that always worked for me. So everyone has their own way of dealing with the day of coming in. But you guys come on at that ungodly hour, as you said, but you would never know that the stress was there for being there because when it goes live, you guys are laughing, talking, and it's just amazing experience in listening to you and
Oh,
listening to your
thanks.
team. Yes, it is.
Thanks.
Because that's not an easy thing to do to get up that early. And because of the fact that you have to be on and now you have cameras and all those things, it's a little different than if you were in the background someplace trying to record and
For
do whatever
sure.
you do.
But you know what's funny is that our listeners are great because they know when we're off or tired. They just know
Yeah,
instantly. And we kind of like wake up with our listeners. Like as people call and we talk to people,
yeah,
someone will say something outrageous and we're just like, what did you just say? I think our shows when we're collectively tired
yeah,
are way funnier
yeah,
than when we're all on.
yeah. Then a kind of a scripted process. Yeah, because the real person kind of comes out, as it relates to that. So I want to go back to New York for a minute. So growing up
Sure.
in radio, broadcast journalism, who was your favorite DJ in New York and what station did you listen to?
I still listen to them till this day. Z100, Elvis Duran, and The Morning Show. I used to listen to them when it was Elvis and Elliot in the morning.
Okay.
Danielle Monero is one of my heroes. I love her so much. Um, and she's like me. She's the co-host and she does the gossip and entertainment stories. And I've been listening to her for years and years and years. But yeah, I still listen to them to this day to kind of feel connected to New York.
Okay. Have you met them?
Yes.
And
So I got to meet Elvis Duran in Paris, which was so amazing. Like I was just freaking out. It was such a moment for me.
picture yourself. Is this a dream or?
100%. So their consultant who works on their show happened to be our consultant. And we all happened to be in Paris at the same time. And we ended up meeting up there. And it was just one of those when you get to meet your hero.
Yeah.
Like that was the moment for me. It was just really cool.
Okay. Yeah, New York radio is different. I mean, New York radio live is different. So mine and going and when I was living in New York full time was WBLS, WKTU was the first disco station kind of thing.
Yeah.
Frankie Crockett, which goes back years ago, was the number one DJ at the 4 p.m. drive hour. Wow, I'm getting flashbacks of.
I know. I went to the KTU studios not too long ago. And I don't know if you know Carolina. She does the morning show used to do it with Paul Cubby Bryant, who also used to be on Z100. Like when I walked into those studios, I was like, wow, I can't believe I'm walking in here. Because as a kid, I used to listen to this all the time. And I'm in the station right now. Like it was insane.
Yeah. So do you feel like you're just living your dream? I dreamed this years ago, and my God, I'm living this.
Yeah, all the time.
All the time.
All the time. There is not one moment in my life where I wake up and I'm arrogant about where I am. Yeah. I am constantly grateful for the platform that I have and where I've reached. Sometimes I'm just like, how did this happen? because I remember being in college and, your advisors and counselors would ask you, what's your goal? What do you want to do? Where do you want to end up? And I'm like, either I want to show like Oprah, or I want to be the co-host of a major breakfast radio show, like
Okay.
Elvis Duran, like Z100.
Really?
Those
Oh
were
my
my two
goodness.
goals. And I've reached those goals way before that goal, before the age of 30, way before. And my mind every day goes,
Wow.
yeah.
Morning show. That was
Yeah.
the goal. And a lot of younger people, high school, are trying to figure things out. I think a lot of times we put pressure on people to say, what are you going to do? What are you going to do in 2 years when you go? What are you going to major in college? Just let them go. Let them go with the flow and let them decide. Eventually they'll figure it out like everyone else before them has figured it out.
100%. But I will say this, like, if you're like me and you figured out what you want to do and you're sure about it, don't like sit and wait to get started on things, I don't think I would be where I am today if I didn't have the experience under my belt. I was lucky enough that my high school had an internship program senior year. So our last semester of high school, we were allowed to work full time at an internship instead of go to school. And that's where I had my first radio internship. And that's where I got my first taste of radio. When I was in college, I sought opportunities outside of my classes. I joined the radio station, which was not just on campus, it was for the town. I went to Hofstra University, and our radio actually was broadcast in Hempstead. Like, people who didn't go to Hofstra listened to us.
Yeah.
So it was community radio, but it was a great learning experience, but it was an extra add-on to my day of full courses. I became a teaching assistant, while I was in college to kind of get more knowledge. So if you know what you want to do, it's not going to come to you. You need to seek out those opportunities.
Yeah. Drive towards it. So when I was in New York, we adopted the High School of Art and Design.
Okay.
For a couple of years, and we did internships for high school students that could come over to Martha Stewart offices, and they, filing papers and sitting in on meetings. And one of the things that kind of stuck to me, we had our chief design officer give the commencement address at High School of Art and Design. And when she finished that speech, one of the mothers came up to me and said, you know what? I had a completely change of my thought for my son's career, because I'm telling him to go to school to be a teacher. Yeah. He says he wants to do art. He wants to do design. And I didn't get it, because I said, if you do this, you got a job. So when the presenter, the person who gave the commencement address, talked through how she was struggling in high school. She was dyslexic. She loved art. She didn't want to do the normal courses. She stuck to that. And now she was the chief design officer for Martha Stewart. And the mother told me, I'm completely flipped now. And I'm going to say, do what you want to do.
Yeah.
Because that's where you're going to be happy. But how many parents can have that moment? Or are you still trying to push me to be something because everyone else in the family is this? You mentioned that your family is full adopted.
Yeah, so I think I'm lucky in a way with my parents. I'm Indian, South Asian background. And I guess the kind of cliche scenario is Indian parents all want their kids to be engineers, doctors, lawyers, whatever it is. Yeah. My parents were completely different from the beginning. They were very, very different. I think they moved to the States in 1978, and I think they adopted very well to kind of all the different worlds. And my dad's thing, like I vividly remember, like when I would be up late studying for an exam, my dad would be like, listen, kid, stop studying. It won't make a difference. It is what it is. If you don't do well, you should have studied harder. If you do well, great, you did great. And that was his analogy. He was always like that. And when it came to this career choice, I'm not going to say they were over the moon, because they didn't know what it was. Yeah. I didn't know much about it at the time, right? But my dad turned to me and said, listen, I can't tell you what to do with your life, because you have to do it at the end of the day. I'm not going to go to the office. You are. So you need to figure out what your career path is going to be. If you think you know what you're doing, do it. But I'm not going to force you to do something else, because you have to be happy in what you're doing. And that's the motto that I've always carried with me. And I have to be thankful to my parents for that, for giving us that kind of freedom to explore and find your own kind of being. Like, I learned what kind of studier I am because I wasn't pushed to just sit down, put my head down and study. I learned what worked, because of, and my sister and I have an older sister. We're two very different people when it comes to academics, but it's not like they forced me to be like her. They said, you have to do what works for you,
Tell your father we need to clone him. Clone him across the globe, because that's the right mindset. You'll figure it out, but kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And you will. If you're young and you're watching this, you're going to figure it out. Like, you have literally your whole life. Like, just calm down. You're going to be fine. I promise.
That's the Priti Malik promise. Stamp it. You're going to be cool. Okay, we're going to do a short commercial break and we'll come right back.
Sure.
Hi, you got a minute? One of the worst feelings is to lose your job and know that you do not have enough cash to pay the rent and buy food. Companies are hiring now, but there's a massive backlog of people who lost their jobs at the start of the pandemic. But do not despair. There is good news and a way forward. Here's the winning goal. Don't be like everyone else. Work harder and smarter. First, acknowledge that hunting for a new job has dramatically changed. What worked in the past will not work today. 2, shockingly, many of the millions who remain unemployed are unwilling to adapt to these new rules, and that's great news for you. Now go out and out-hustle your competitors. Customize your resume. Do your homework. Prepare, rehearse for each interview. 3, there will be rejection. Get back up. Go again. Don't give up.
So one of the things I was thinking about is that when I read in your bio, you worked for in an internship, Barbara Walters, Diane Sawyer, in awe of celebrity. I worked for a celebrity. She would love for me to say she was a celebrity, and working for that person who's highly visible. Was there any learnings that came away from that, watching the way people interacted with her? Because now, and I'm going to say this, you're probably in the same position. If someone listen to me. In your market,
okay,
for someone coming in and working for you, and they're in high school or maybe college as an internship, you're viewed in Dubai as a major celebrity, whether you want to agree with it or not.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you.
So, what did you learn from that you translate into the role that you're playing now?
So I was an intern for a news show in the States called 2020. I'm sure you've heard of it, on ABC. Yeah. So I was an ABC intern, and I was put onto that show. And there was my first day on the job. I so remember this. It was during the holiday time, and they said, you have to go deliver Barbara Walters her holiday gifts. That was my first job on the day. I fell out of like everything. I was like, I gotta go to Barbara Walters' office. She was not in our office, so I didn't get to see her. But it was like that kind of environment. And then in the course of what I was doing in my job, one fine day, they said, Diane Sawyer's assistant is not in today for a few hours. We need someone to cover for her. And I said, and they picked me out of everyone, all the interns. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to go and answer phones for Diane Sawyer. I walk in and I met her. And one of those out of body experiences.
Been there, done that.
That's what it was like meeting Diane Sawyer. I met her. I know I met her. But it was just one of those moments where I'm looking at her and I can't stop looking at her. And it was just one of those moments. Her beautiful blue eyes, like she was such a presence, you know.
Yes.
You understand why a woman of that stature gets the interviews that she gets. Her presence is something that you can't describe. And it was really cool to be in that office. I'm sitting at her assistant's desk and she gave me a bunch of instructions, like if her cook calls, tell them this, and do this, do this, do this. I need the car, blah, blah, blah. I'm sitting at this desk and I'm staring at her Emmys. I'm staring at this woman's Emmys. And it was just one of those moments why it was just really inspiring. It was just like, you know, there's so many great women in this industry, and she's definitely one of them who's had such a trailblazing career. And it was just a really cool thing, and it was just inspiration at the end of the day.
Wow, that still has it. The way you were describing that, you could see the impact that it still has, that you were sitting there and watching that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'll never forget what that Emmy looks like. You know, it's cool.
Yeah. So what's the biggest celebrity that you've met? Since you're the gossip queen and you have access to all those people. I saw some photos. Will Smith was over in Dubai and you kind of hung out with him in the studio. What's the biggest celebrity that you've met and was very excited about, kind of a Diane Sawyer moment in a new age?
There's a lot. I got to tell you, Ron, there's a lot. We have been blessed to meet a lot of great people. Will is definitely up on that list. The nicest guy on camera and off camera. Like we saw him do stuff when the cameras weren't around where he didn't need to be that nice. And he was, you know, as a genuine guy. We've met so many different Hollywood actors like Cate Blanchett, who was phenomenal, Priyanka Chopra, who's been amazing. I've met a lot of Bollywood celebs. Gosh, there's so many. There's so literally, this sounds terrible, but there's so many. The Kardashians, who are amazing. Kris Jenner, she's so cool. Like we've been blessed to meet a lot of really, really cool people in our industry. And they're amazing. The bigger the star, the nicer and cooler they are.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's cool to hear, because lots of times you think, could you hear stories, you know, of the rudeness or whatever it is? But that's good to hear from someone who's in that space, that you have actually met these people.
Yeah, for sure. The bigger the star, the more A-list they are, the nicer they are, for sure.
So as we begin the process of closing out the show, what advice would you give for the high school student, or what would you tell you at the 16, 17, and I'm trying to figure it out. I don't know where this thing is going to end up. I have hopes and dreams. What advice would you give a younger you?
You know what? A younger me is very different than what a younger person my age is these days. I think with the introduction of social media into our lives and how integrated it is, life is very different. Everybody wants to be an influencer. Everyone wants to be a blogger. Everyone wants to be famous on one of these platforms. So my advice to someone who's 16 right now, I would say social media is amazing, and it is an amazing platform, and I will never disregard it. I'm not one of those people who's like influencer what, influencer this. Yes, you can monetize those platforms. I 100% I'm on board with that. But why? Why? I need you to find the why. I'm on Instagram and I recognize my abilities on Instagram because I'm a broadcaster. There's a reason why you may want to follow me. You get an inside look into all the different gigs that I MC, what I do on the radio, etc. Why? What's your why? What's your purpose in life? You're just going to take nice photos and put it up. Like, what is your purpose? And I think a lot of high school students these days have that pressure. Take nice photos, wear cool clothes, do all the, you know, and try to get more followers. But why should someone follow you? Discover who you are. Don't be so quick to be like, I got 100 new followers on Instagram. What does that mean? What's your message? what do you want to say to the world? You can't figure out what you want to say to the world unless you live in this world.
Exactly.
So don't be so worried about those numbers. I would say explore life, learn about yourself, find your path. Don't worry about what everyone else is doing. I was the only one in my entire friends in college. I did not have one person who was doing the same thing that I was doing. Not one person.
Okay.
All my friends were either accounting, teaching, something else. No one was doing what I was doing, but that doesn't mean I'm doing something wrong. I'm just doing something that I love. So find something that you love and don't worry about what everyone else is doing.
Yeah, I'm glad you anchored that in the social media space, because I hear people and I read stories about people, they see everyone posting cool things and they feel that that external view is the life they're living. And on the flip side of that, it's totally different. It's kind of the iceberg theory. Up top, everything looks cool, hanging out, but I'm miserable under that.
Yeah, it's true. Don't believe everything on Instagram, except mine. I'm pretty real. I keep it real.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I keep it real.
Yeah. So you know what? Since you mentioned that, I love your dance moves. So you're always dancing, and so that's I'm excited. I'm engaged in what I'm doing. You're having fun, and I think that's kind of is that kind of your personality? I'm just a fun person. I love to laugh. I love to just have fun.
Yeah, that's me in a nutshell. Like what you see on my platform is literally me. Like I'm hungry. I make my husband cook all the time, play with my dog. I dance a lot.
Yeah.
I watch a lot of Netflix.
Yeah.
And that's me. Like that's me in a nutshell. I just want to chill. I want everyone around me to be happy. I want to spread positivity. I just want smiles. Like that's what I want. And that's what I want my platform to be. And I'm so glad that you said that, because that's exactly what I want it to be. You know, I want it to be a safe place for positivity.
So let me walk you through a little backstory as to why I wanted to talk to you, because you come through as authentic.
Thank you.
You don't come through as kind of a fake. I'm doing this now. The lights are off, and I go back into another persona. You know, you're in your backyard and you're dancing. You're having fun. You and Jeff, great relationship, laughing, and all those kinds of things. It comes through as authentic. It doesn't come through as fake. And coming from New York to the platform you are now, one of the number one celebrities in Dubai, whether you want to agree with that or not.
Thank you.
And that was the reason I said, you know what, that's a story behind this. And I wanted to get the story behind this. And this is why I wanted you on as a guest.
Thank you. I really do. I really and truly do appreciate that. Everything that I do, I want to make sure I'm always authentic to myself, that it makes sense, even with brands and stuff. You know, I had someone DM me the other day. They were like, hey, don't you think you should think about who you're working with? And I said, listen, every single brand that I have worked with, I look at a perspective of, A, would I use it? What is my relationship to this brand?
Okay.
And I'm always like that, because I think in this Instagram world, you need people who are real. I can't keep up with that. My feed will never look like those really cool people, because I can't do that. That's not me, you know? And I really appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
No, that comes through. That comes through from the morning show. And also the laugh. So the laugh was the hook. The laugh was the hook. And I said, you know what? I got to start listening to this show, because I love the way that she laughs, because it reminds me of my daughter, who I love dearly. And I said, I have to start listening to this show. And then as the more I listen to it, very down to earth person, and comes through, because we want to be perceived in a certain way, but sometimes our actions, our movements and body languages doesn't connect with what we're trying to present. And with you, it always came through as authentic.
Thank you. I that really means a lot to me, more than you'll ever know. So thank you. Thank you for saying that. Thank you.
So I want to thank you for taking time. We were supposed to do this. You were supposed to be in Canada when we talked about it before. We had a mix up last year because of scheduling of Expo and all this, but I'm glad you were able to take time to come and talk to people, because you have a huge following. You are a huge influencer across the globe, whether you want to agree with it or not. And so I thank you for taking time for us. Thank you so much.
This was so much fun. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you.